Hello and welcome to Gardening at 58 North. In this video I'd like to give you guys an update on my morning glory plants here. So it's been exactly 1 month since I've sown them. So I sowed them on the 30th of March, it's now the 30th of April, and they've put on some really good growth over that time. They were a little bit slow to get going at first, but they've really started to take off now, and I need to really get them potted up soon, otherwise there's going to be a real problem with them getting tangled together. And there's already a couple that I've already had to untangle. You can see what they've started to do is put on this really long wispy growth, and that's them getting ready to go into the kind of the mature stage where they just climb and scramble over things. When they first germinate, they tend to become quite bushy little plants like this one here. You'll get a few leaves and the stems stay quite short, but once they're established and then start putting on more mature growth ready for climbing, and you get these really long wispy stems and they start spiraling round and attaching to things. So if I don't get these planted soon, they'll all get tangled together and it'll be quite hard to plant them. But also this is a good stage for me to now plant it, because I know once it's in the soil it'll quickly wrap up the framework that I'm going to make for it. So this is where I'm hoping to plant the morning glory plants. It's going to be quite tricky because there's already a row of strawberries here. At the far left, just down in this corner, I'm hoping to plant a few there because there's not going to be any strawberries in that section. And then along this section here, it's going to have to be inside the actual crate there, and so it's going to be quite difficult to plant that section, but I'm going to give my best shot, try and get that section planted up in between the crate, and then just the end there will be in the normal soil. Now I'm not going to be able to amend the soil much here, but they're quite vigorous plants anyway, so this shouldn't need the best soil. This should be able to still grow quite well. But I will be giving them quite a lot of feed. They're tropical plants, they grow really fast, they will need a lot of feed, and so I will have to give them something to try and improve the soil. As I say, I can't dig it over, but I can at least give them a liquid feed. And then the plan is that they're going to be growing up this pallet here. I'm going to put on some more string, because this string at the moment is really not enough, and a lot of it's snapped in the past anyway. And also these are going to grow several meters. They could grow up to 4 to 6 meters this summer, so they need plenty of space. This is only about 1.5 meters in height, or maybe just over 1 meter, probably about 1.20 meters. So it really needs to be bigger, the support. So I'm going to get some twine, and I'm going to make the twine go from the ground level where they'll start to grow right up the top of this pallet here. I'll then loop them over the top of this beam here on the top of the polytunnel, so that the support will loop over here, and then I'll get the cables and I'll run the twine right down to this pole here. The idea is this whole section here will be covered with the morning glory plants by the end of summer. So you can see as it comes up and the string goes right across, that will cover this whole section here with plants. And we don't actually grow anything in this area. This is normally just a holding space, or it's where I do all my propagation, so we don't need this to be well lit with the sunshine, so it's fine to have a bit of shading here. So I have the wires go across, and at some point, it depends how well they grow. If they grow across that beam there, I might have them growing over this side of the production zone as well, and possibly to the front, but I'm not going to worry about that now, because that's something that might not happen. It might not actually grow that much, we'll just have to see. But I'm pretty sure it'll definitely grow up to this beam up here from that section over there. So I'll start off with that, with twine for that, and then later on in the summer, if they look like they're going to grow really well, I'll go in and I'll put in a lot more twine to help them grow further. So that's the morning glory plants now all planted up, and that's also the string all put into the right position. So because there's a slight curve on the polytunnel and the base is wider than the top, the two at this end will be sharing the string once they get higher up. But what I'll probably do is I'll actually get one of them to come across this way if it gets too crowded. And same with this section. This shouldn't be too crowded, but as you see the spacing is much wider, but I had to narrow it as I got to the edge here. So I'll get a few of these ones going over to the right to fill in that section, whereas the rest of them I'll just get to go straight ahead. So I've planted up 8 plants here, which is a lot for this small space, especially as morning glories are really strong, vigorous growers. And so as you can see here, it was quite a tight space for planting, but I've managed to fit them in. The most difficult ones were the ones that were right down there in between the pallet, but I just about managed to pop them in their space. So these should grow up quite quickly now. They're still a little bit small for attaching onto the wires, so they should manage to latch on by themselves. If not, I might just loosely tie them onto it just to get them started. But once they start climbing and they start twining, they'll easily twine up string, no problem, without any help. But sometimes when at the very beginning, they need a little bit of help just to get started. And I say it's quite a lot of the plants in a small space, but what I'm hoping is that I'm going to get them, instead of bushing out, I'll have them grow up long, thin. So for example, this plant might grow 3 meters in all directions, but if I just let it grow in one direction, it should grow something like 6 meters. So the idea is here, what I would do is I'll take off any side branches, just encourage them to keep going straight until they reach the full length. Once they reach the full length, I'll let any side branches grow, and then they'll just thicken up basically on the strings that they're going on. Because if you just let one spiral up here, there's still plenty of space in between the leaves. So for example, I can show you here, the space between the leaves is quite wide, so they could probably twine up 3 times, and until the space in between the leaves was absolutely choked up with leaves. So because of that, once they spiral up and cover the whole section, the whole length, then I can let any side shoots come up, spiral around again, and that will fill up nicely, and there'll be just like columns of green, and then they should be flowering, covered in flowers on and off throughout the summer as well. I'll give you guys an update in a few weeks' time. I'm expecting some really rapid growth from these once they get the roots established. They're probably going to grow 1 or 2 centimeters a day to begin with, but when it gets to midsummer and they're decent sized plants and we're getting some hot sunshine, these are probably going to grow up to 10 centimeters a day, I would think. They're going to be really rapidly growing plants. So the next update will probably be in about a month's time, but I suspect they won't have put on a huge amount of growth. They'll probably have doubled in height, maybe tripled. So I'm hoping in a month's time we're going to have plants roughly up to about this height. But then a month after that, they're probably going to be right up to the top. So once they really get going, they'll really shoot up fast. But for the first month or 2, they'll just be getting themselves established, and they won't be putting on any really rapid growth. So I'm quite looking forward to seeing how these do. I'm hoping to cover this whole section of the polytunnel with the morning glory plant. That'll provide a nice bit of shade if you want to do any potting up in the potting up area. And also it means that it's going to give lots of colour in that side of the polytunnel. It should look quite nice. So the other half of the polytunnel I'll be filling up with vegetable plants. If there is space, I was thinking what I might do, because I've still got 15 plants left, and I have some places outside to plant them, but not a huge number. I could plant them on the bottom of the supports here on the polytunnel and let them grow up and over, but the problem with that is it would start shading out some of the tomatoes and other vegetables in here. So that's something I might look at doing if some of the tomatoes start going over early because of blight, or it looks like we're going to have quite a bit of space in between them. But to be honest, I think it's going to be quite full, and I am actually planning to do that down here with the cobra beans down here. The cobra bean is a type of French climbing bean, and I haven't tied these in yet, but the idea is they come up these willow canes. I'm going to have them equally spaced out, and then I'll tie them up with twine up to the supports here, and then they can grow over the top of the supports. Same over here, we'll tie them up, and the first 3 are already tied up. So once the cobra beans get to the top of this, we can then grow them up further over the top there. They won't be shading anything out, because that way is north, so any sun coming in, it shouldn't shade out too much. The rest of them here, I'm also going to tie them up probably up to these cables, up to these bamboo canes here. But to be honest, what I will probably try and do is just pinch out the top, allow more to shoot up from the bottom, and we'll just get a thicker, heavier crop lower down. It would be nice to see how far these can grow over, but the problem is if they come over too far, we'll start growing into the tomato space, and then we've also got the cucumbers that'll be growing up here. So I'll give you guys an update of that anyway when it comes to it. But that's all for now, and hopefully we'll get some nice flowers starting in about a month or 2 on these morning glory plants.